session meeting for April 28th, 2021. Let the record reflect, we do have a quorum. Member Luker, Member Onstad, Member Yeager, Member Schilling, and Mayor Iverson are present. I will read our opening. Good evening. We greatly appreciate our staff, council, and residents adapting to our teleconference format due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Tonight's meeting will be held under Minnesota State Statute 13D.021 that permits a public body to hold a meeting via telephone or other electronic means due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For members of the public, the meeting is being live streamed on the City of Wyoming YouTube page. The Wyoming City Council meeting, the special session, work session will be recorded as part of the public record. After each agenda item is read and staff gives a report on the agenda item, I will call upon each council member individually if they have questions on that particular item. If we do need to make a motion on any of these items or make a second motion, please state your name first. All the votes on all items will be completed by a roll call to meet the standards for state statute 13D.021. All right, so we are going to start with number 1 on our agenda to continue discussion regarding financial impact of the facilities and street CIP in relation to the city's long-term plan. Mr. Linwood, I think you're starting off first, correct?
I will start, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm going to have a brief presentation to just highlight kind of where we've been and how we've gotten here, and then to hit some of the high points of that long-term plan. Then we also have Gene McCann, the president of AM, with us tonight to discuss that plan a little more in depth and help answer questions regarding it and some of those impacts that you'll be seeing tonight. So with that, I will. I'm going to share my screen here. Give me 1 second. Okay. Everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. As you received a memo and packet, and we just kind of talked about that the council was going to continue to work in this master facility plan for consideration. And at our April 7th meeting, at that last work session, World Architects had that presentation that continued to discuss those priorities and the options for those existing facilities. They really went through a lot of that option analysis and talked about that short-term needs and priorities and gave those recommendations and financial estimates of opinions and options of those financial impacts on those 3 different facilities that we saw. The recommendations are as follows. The public safety, just to recap, was to create that new public safety facility on a greenfield site. This facility would consist of police and fire department. Impound lot would also be included on this site for public safety and meets all needs up until 2040. The second was City Hall, and that was the short term to renovate the existing City Hall facility to accommodate ADA and safety concerns, and then a more long-term plan to renovate the City Hall to accommodate needs and space deficiencies and to look at that extra square footage if there was any rooms that were eventually vacated, and that would also meet up to that 2040 date. And lastly, our public works facilities, that would be once again to look at the existing facility on the Wyoming Trail, to build a new office and heated garage on that former township property, and add an existing cold storage facility on that as well. And that would once again meet all the needs of 2040. We did look at the costs on this. These were the costs that Wold had, the original options on this, that public safety building, the City Hall, and the public works for a total of that $18,430,000. We talked a little bit more about those costs and square footage recommendations as the council goes through this exercise and process, and to really talk about some considerations in regards to those construction inflation costs. I know Mr. Luce went through those a little more in depth at our last meeting, but as we continue, obviously costs and building costs continue to rise. So something just for the council to be aware of as we continue through this process. These are the high-level financial impacts, and this is actually updated from the last time. This is actually in the long-term plan, but this shows some of the estimates in regards to if we were to utilize some bonding for those facilities and how the impacts you would see those from 2021 out to 2027. And there's some notes in regards to having some existing bonds that are paid off in 25 and 27, and those falling off the city's debt schedule, but then having the addition of those potential bonds for facilities if that were the route that the city council determined to go. Second piece of that last meeting is we really talked about our street improvement program and how we've been maintaining our streets and how we select a number of streets each year that are identified to be in our 5-year CIP, and that we really look at that condition, the utilities condition, and the type of street as the council prioritizes those projects. We went through and really identified and talked about since 2014 the projects that we have completed, that we've done 13.75 miles up until this year, and we'll add in another additional 3.7 in our 21 project for approximately 17.5 miles out of our total 68 miles of city streets. The other component that we talked about was the maintenance of our city streets. We talked about our street overlays, our crack filling, our sealing of streets, really as we want to maximize the maintenance process on these to really minimize those long-term costs, because as we do these, that useful life of payment by taking care of what we have, and as we've been doing all these streets, Mr. Almgeld had gone through the process of going through our calculations right now on what we use for our costs for maintaining those streets. Is we had been budgeting approximately $100,000, and really it was coming out closer to that $177,000 mark, which the council did give some direction to add that into that long-term plan and be able to identify what those impacts would be with adding those extra maintenance costs. Just a little history in regards that we talked about in 2017 that the city council implemented a cash flow analysis. It's really helped us try to identify what our street program could do and prioritize those dollars and what we could do in the future as we look to take on those future projects. In 2020, as you're aware, the city council, we started to work on that long-term plan and really looking at that analysis from a long-term consideration of those capital needs, our normal operating, our street funding options, water and sewer, and really just an overall big view picture of the city and looking at that multi-year budgeting. We talked with the city council about the current CIP schedule for our streets, really evaluating those and making sure that these were still the priorities, and the council value these as we've identified these, the upcoming streets that are in the worst condition and really the best candidates that we have moving forward. This is always a fluid situation on the streets, as there may be some times when we have things that pop up where this may change as it has in the past, but it's our best foot forward on prioritizing those projects. So where are we at tonight? Council direction to city staff, we asked AEM to do some long-term plan impacts of the potential impacts of those facility costs, a 5-year street CIP costs, and then updates including those really looking at the maintenance costs and looking at how that street funding program utilizing potentially levy dollars for those added costs in that street program, or to look at other options like franchise fees. You received that draft long-term plan within your packet, and Ms. McGann will go this, but just to hit some of the high points, this is similar to what you received last year, but it showed that the general fund tax levy, just our normal operation inflationary increase is 3.5% annually. And then it went through the different issuances of bonds for facilities in 23 and 25, and then for the street replacement project in 2025. And then the first tax levy increases is projected in 2023. And like we talked about before, those 2009 A bonds drop off in 2025, and that helps offset some of that impact from that 2023 A bond issuance. Total taxes levied is projected to increase from 4.4 million to 6.5 million over the duration of the plan. And that tax capacity will offset some of that increase. As we talked about and we've done our budgeting with the council, you're aware that that tax capacity increase really, when we have had increases in our budget, is really offsets that, where we don't see from a city's tax standpoint where we don't have a large impact on our residents and businesses with that. So you can see that that estimate goes from 43.31 in 2021 up to 51.23 in 25 based on this plan. You see our cash position changes, that 15.3 million in 2019 to 7.4 million in 2025. This plan right now assumes implementation of franchise fees in 2021, and that's 3 months of revenue. Those fees are projected at $290,000. That would be either if it was franchise fees or levy dollars. That 290 has changed. Originally in that first draft plan, it was 270, but with the increased maintenance costs, that needed to be raised. So you can see that as the impact right there. For comparative purposes, it was asked if the franchise fees were compared to property tax levy for the impacts of that 290,000. So you can see that a medium home value in 2022, you would see a property tax increase of approximately $73 for that 290,000. Where if it was determined that franchise fees were a use that we wanted to look at, it'd be $63 on that annual basis. With that, going through the highlights, Ms. McCann, I don't know if you wanted to go through anything more in depth or if you wanted to open the questions up to the council or how you would like to proceed.
Thank you. I do have a couple components within the long-term plan I would like to walk through. Rob, would it be all right if I shared my screen?
Of course.
Thank you. I apologize for that.
Very easy to do, Jean, especially this day and age, right?
Oh, okay. Can you see the outstanding debt schedule? Thank
Yes.
you. I do apologize. Okay. I wanted to start off just by talking a little bit about the outstanding debt schedule. We've talked about the two different bonds that will be falling off. And
Jean, can I just interrupt just 1 second? Does everybody have their microphones muted? There's been some dogs and car noises and all that kind of stuff. So while Jean's presenting, can we just make sure we're all muted, please? I will do the same thing here. All right, Jean, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. No worries. If you look under the potential new debt, we do have the capital within the capital revolving fund for facilities. We do have the, the bond issuance would actually be in 2023. And then the first bond payment on that would be in 2024. And I just wanted to show this screen so you can see how the debt does, of course, reduce over time and the different obligations that are out there. I am going to go over to the taxes page at this point so that you can see how you have your general fund is going up by about 3.5%. So each one of the different funds that does have property taxes involved is indicated out on this particular page. I know that when you start looking at a ton of numbers, it can become extremely overwhelming. And so I thought I would talk a little bit about how this overall long-term plan works and all rolls up. So this particular page is pulling from every individualized fund the amount of property taxes that would be levied to the community. And as we go through this, we come up with our total taxes levied here in the middle of the page. So you can see for 2021, it was 4.4 million. And then how tax capacity will also grow over time. Anytime you're doing a long-term plan, of course, you need to base everything on assumptions. And so, we would look at, things such as the number of new homes, and we try to have a conservative estimate on that because we don't want to be overestimating the tax capacity increases. Down here under tax rates, you'll see we have the median home. And for 2021, we had the median home valued at $275,834. And then just looking at the overall city taxes by year as to what the impacts would be. Another important component, though, is when you're looking at all of your different funds, you need to make certain that you have an adequate cash balance. So we kind of do a trend line, basically like the stoplight. If it's green, it's good. If it's yellow, we need to slow down and look at it. The trend indicator that we use is located at the bottom of your page here. So for the most part, we are, in pretty good position, throughout all the various funds. But it is really important as you're looking at the long-term plan to really focus in on that area. The one I did want to also share with you, as we're going through each individual fund and you're reviewing the long-term plan, you'll see like here for the street replacement fund, every individualized project is listed out by year. And then as you go on to the next page, you'll see how each one of these projects are actually going to be funded. So for instance, for the street replacement fund, if we look at 2022, we're projecting $300,000 in property taxes, $93,000 in special assessments. And this is where the franchise fees of $290,000 that Rob had indicated previously, this is where that revenue is coming in as well. We also have the opportunity with the various projects to receive an advance from MSA. Essentially, you're getting an advance, and then it's just tracked over the number of years. And so you can't utilize additional dollars until that particular allocation is used up. So then we also come down and we show the capital outlay, which is from the previous page. And then if there's any transfers in or anything of that nature, that is shown under your other financing sources and uses. So then you're coming up with your net cash position. I thought it would be helpful to explain exactly how all of this rolls together as you are reviewing this information. At the back of the long-term plan, I also provided an analysis where you would see if we were to do property taxes as opposed to franchise fees, so that you can run through those numbers and see where the impact to the average home is at. Just thought it'd be helpful to run through that. And at this point, I'm happy to stand for questions.
Jean, I'm gonna just kind of start with a couple, please. If we do go for, first of all, I want to state this for everybody who's watching and will be watching these are assumptions, so they are not hard numbers. We have not voted on any of this. We're just looking at the numbers. And as Ms. McCann is saying, it looks like we've already budgeted for it. We have not. These are just projections. So I wanted to make sure for the public watching that this is how we look forward and see how things fit. So with that being said, here's a question that I don't think we talked about last time is the property that Public Works is currently on right off of 61. Can we sell that? And if so, and I know we don't know how we're projecting how much money it can be. What can we do with that sale? Where does it go? What happens with that if we do that? So just kind of, that's my first question. And then I do have a question maybe for Weld if they're on regarding the old fire hall. So if we could start with that first one, that would be great.
The fire, if that was something that we did, that we wanted, that the council made a decision through this process to build a new facility, you certainly could sell that Public Works facility in town. You know, I'm not sure. We would probably have to look at comparable sales for it. If I had to guess approximately, I guess I would probably do a pretty big range. Probably I would guess 300,000 to 500,000 for that building, somewhere in there. But like I said, we want to go through the due diligence of, if we ever got to that point, obviously, but you know, potentially an appraisal, comparables, all of that, but probably somewhere in that ballpark would be my guess.
Okay, and we currently don't receive any taxes off that because it's city owned. So if we did sell it, there could be a potential business to come in and receive taxes on that, right?
Likely.
Okay. And the properties that we're proposing, especially with the fire and the police that we're looking at, not that we're proposing, but looking at, right now, again, we do not receive taxes on that either, right? It's not on the tax roll. We're not taking any taxes away. Correct,
they're exempt.
Okay. So then my other question, if Wald is listening, I think Jonathan's on.
Yep.
When we're looking at City Hall, and we have short-term, long-term on this, as I look in that picture, and maybe it's just me, the old fire hall, are we getting rid of that or repurposing that? Or what is it that, where is that going? where the fire hall is currently? Are we knocking that down or has that become part of, I just can't tell from the rendering.
Yeah, great question. It actually is not being removed. It would just be repurposed. If City Hall had to expand, then they could take over some of those spaces, or there could be other potential flex space for, other parking for other vehicles or things like that. So the intention is just to keep it basically within the shell that you see now and exists now, and just use it for future purposes.
Okay, so it could be a community center at some point in time, correct?
Yeah, depending on what programs go in there, certainly.
Okay, all right. And I really kind of think that was it. Like I said, everything else is the language that we're hearing and that is available for people to read is language that is coming from our financial director and kind of saying that's what we need to do in order to kind of figure things out. So I appreciate, Jean, you going through that. All right, so I'm going to call on each individual council member for any questions. We are going to start with Member Onstad.
I currently don't have any questions. I'm sure as I go through though, I'll probably think of something, but at this time, no questions.
All right, thank you. And let's do Member Yeager next.
Okay, I have these things coded for how they look on the packet. So if you want to find them. In the 3.5% annual increase from the general fund, does that include any cost of increasing the staff?
If there are, staff assumptions for adding additional staff, at this point, we have the general fund just increasing at the overall 3.5%.
Okay, so that's basically a no. There's nothing in here for increasing staff. Is that right?
Not at this point.
Okay. Are there plans to increase the staff with all this space?
I guess I don't understand this question of what space.
Well, you will have an addition plus the fire hall. You'll have I look on, if I find it here, I guess your space needs have increased. And so are we going to offer additional services, hire additional staff?
I don't think we have no indication right now, I guess, unless the city council wanted to offer additional services in that space. I think through this process, as we look at that, really the other building, that public safety building, is that there would be a garage space area that opens at City Hall with if the fire department and public safety were to move to a new building. So that would be a council discussion really on that, if down the line, if that space wanted to be repurposed into something else.
Okay. So you're planning the fire hall goes to be like a garage?
In the short term, I don't think there'd be an improvement on it. That would have to come with council discussion as far as if we did any major changes to that, or if we wanted to offer different services or change it into something else.
Okay. On page 22 of the packet, under new debt, I noticed there wasn't any new utility bonds.
That is correct.
Okay, and none are planned for till after 2025?
At this point, based on the long-term plan capital projections, there was no need to add in additional bonding.
Okay. And then I see there's a street replacement bond with a 15-year term. Given that in this year's street project, we mentioned going back to a 10-year term, why not stay with the 10-year term? Why, flip between 10 years and 15 years?
I think in regards to that, you're referring to that 2025 bond, Councilmember Yeager?
Yeah.
I think in the past, and that's been a year by year consideration by the council, what we've looked at is some of those lesser street projects in regards to cost. We've looked more at that 10-year term, where that 2025 was one that was a little bit on the higher side, where we've looked at maybe extending that into 15 years to offer some relief to our residents in regards to potentially having higher assessments. So I think that was the thought process on that. But obviously that's a council decision, and we would do that for every time we bond. It's always brought to you for discussion, at the end of the day.
Right, because I remember Mr. Erickson saying something about the lower interest costs with the reduced term of the bond. So I asked. There was an entry for a CD siren for 20, I guess it was 2022. Now I can't quite find it. It was on page 30. I don't know what that corresponds to in the other. Oh yeah, here we go. A civil defense siren. That was for 2022. Is this the one we talked about last week? That's going to be moved up to this year, or is this an additional siren that we might need?
I believe Mr. Hoppy, if you want to speak on that, but I'm about 95% sure that is the siren we're moving up. Chief Hoppy, do you have any comment on that?
That is correct. That's the siren that we're going to be doing this year, moving it from 2022 to 2021. So
Okay.
that will come off of our capital plan for next year.
Okay, so that just needs to be updated a bit. And then under the parks, I see that it's on page 34 of the packet. 25,000 a year for parks. That looks like it's going to be funded. Oh, there it is. It's going to be funded by the gambling fund. What kind of projects are we looking at?
Member Yeager, I'm gonna request that we try to stay on task regarding the facilities and that sort of thing. So the other questions you have could be things that we talked during our budget session, which is starting in June. So if we could try to stay on topic, that would be great.
Well, I thought the topic was the long-term plan, and I spent all day yesterday going through each and every table, and these are the questions I have. So if you don't,
you'll be ready when it comes budget time. So if you could please continue to keep it on to facilities, that would be great. Otherwise, we're gonna have a really super long meeting.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Then my other questions are basically, since I have a long-term plan that I apparently can't ask questions on, they're all, why are we, what's the renew and replace projects for the sewer funds, water and sewer funds? Will the surface CIP be reflected updated to reflect the vac truck the used vac truck we just purchased? Are we still getting a street sweeper? What are the projects that we have that show up in this long-term plan? Or are these all these numbers just simply placeholders?
It's a draft for the council, but in regards to the renew and replace, that's based off our 2018, so our 2019 through 2023 water and sewer study, or that basically we budget a component for when we say renew and replace of existing water main or sewer main, or potentially areas that we may have to do work on. So that's something that we would continue to see in that. In regards to that surface water, it may need some updating in regards to that jetter truck being purchased and that trailer not being purchased. We'd still, as Mr. Olmsted indicated, and we had talked about, we'd still be looking at an acquisition of a street sweeper and looking at different avenues for that, whether it's grants or buying one outright, as we've seen that there's value in that. So most of the numbers, I think, is a reflection of where we at. There may need to be some of those updates, like that most recent purchase of that jet truck, but they are for the most part our best attempt to reflect that 5-year window and all those potential costs that we have. All the numbers are based off of our CIP, off of our past working budgets and moving forward working budgets with everything that we're talking about tonight, whether it be facilities, whether it be streets. So it's, I think AEM, as the council authorized this plan, there was a lot of work that went into it. So that the numbers aren't just simply placeholders. I think it's a good picture of where we're at.
So basically, your best attempt to reflect any potential costs that may come up in the next 5 years.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, with that, let's go next to Member Schilling, please.
Not really questions. I was reviewing what we looked at. It looks like we'd be adding those two. Let me pull my agenda back up. Apologies. We'd be adding those two capital revolving facilities, the 409, if I'm looking at that correctly. Is that correct? That would be the fund for that new debt.
Correct.
Okay, and that wouldn't start till 2023. Honestly, at this point, I don't really have any questions on it. I mean, the way it's looking, I don't have an issue with it at this point. If we're going to talk about long-term plan for facilities, my stance will never change from this position and by some miracle, but I'm going to stand by all or nothing from the get-go because it's easier to get it done now at lower costs than it is to do it later at a higher cost. So, and I'll just leave it at that, Mayor.
All right, Member Schilling, when you state that, are you saying to do all the facilities at one time? So I think mostly
Yes.
you're talking about City Hall, correct?
I'm actually saying all facilities. I'm not, I'm not in favor of leaving the City Hall building. I mean, that is the only portion of this that I could look at and go, okay, we could look at that for future repurposing. The ADA is the most important, but I think the other two, I mean, it's got to be a Band-Aid effect. We got to get it, rip it off and go. The City Hall gives us more adjustment on what we could repurpose for, but on that long-term portion of that detail that was provided. So as far as the other two, I think this is 20 years overdue. And at some point, yes, we're going to end up being the bad guys. I get that. But again, you go back to when I was knocking on doors, these are one of the things that I was discussing with people, and overwhelming majority of people that I did speak with were, more in favor of it than less, because, in my opinion, I've stated it before, our facilities are an embarrassment as far as city pride for me, because it's been overlooked and kicked down the road so long that it's not flattering to me when I talk about it with other people. So.
All right, thank you. Member Luger.
I have no questions at this point. I'm looking forward to this process as we kind of whittle the numbers down and fine tune and start to really kind of evolve our, what it looks like and crunch the numbers further. I think we're off to a great start on this. I concur with my colleagues that this is far overdue. Our residents should have facilities that are inclusive of everyone, and our employees should have facilities that suit their needs in order to perform their job duties. And we don't currently have that right now.
All right, thank you. Just for residents that might be just tuning in, Mr. Linwood, can you just say the year that City Hall was built? And I think at that time we didn't have the township involved. It was kind of smaller, city was small, and same with Public Works, please.
I may need Mr. Weck's help on the former township building, but the City Hall was 1977 or 1978, and then Mr. Weck maybe on that former township building.
Early 70s for best guess.
And I believe that's the same for the Public Works building, I believe as well, somewhere in that area.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, if there aren't any other questions, when I was campaigning as well, there was a lot of questions about our City Hall and police department. We did touch a truck. Obviously, it wasn't last summer, but it was the summer before. And a lot of residents had a chance to actually go into the police department. Chief Hoppy, I believe you were there that day as well and giving tours. And there was a lot of people that came back out, because I remember by the table out there, whatever. And as people were coming out, they were making comments about the police department and how they couldn't believe how small it was and how cramped it was and the limited space that you guys had. So, and can you remember some of those comments? I think I had them written down somewhere, but can you remember some of those comments? And I think it's important that people hear that.
Yeah, I certainly don't have them verbatim, so please don't quote me accordingly. But the overwhelming majority of people, I think, were surprised just to see the inadequateness of our facilities. You know, the lack of reasonable, bathroom facilities for our staff, the non-existence of locker rooms, the inadequate, facilities for, collecting evidence and storing evidence, and it just, for the last 10 years, it's been the same thing over and over. It doesn't matter who we walk through, when you demonstrate what we have and what the standard for professional policing is, it's overwhelmingly obvious, for those that have walked through, to see the inadequateness that exists. And so overwhelmingly, I would say that there was significant support that, that we take steps to upgrade our facilities to give us the necessary space needs to be able to perform policing at today's professional standards.
Okay, and Mr. Umjald, if I can ask you this, because I don't work on machinery at all, and we're looking at a possibly heated facility for Public Works. I've been in Public Works and it's always cold. So is this something new, and how does this affect the equipment? Because we have $1 million in equipment, millions and millions of dollars in equipment, right? So can you maybe say what the difference is between the heated, or why we need that, or why is that important in our investment? Because I'm kind of curious into that.
In a new facility, we'd probably go with heated floors so that the moisture dries up right away on the floors. Currently, we don't have a hoist or an overhead hoist either. And the facility, everybody works on the floor. You have to lay on the floor on a creeper if the equipment will let you. Otherwise, it's very unsafe, because like if you put a wing on a snowplow, you're using a skid loader and balancing it on the forks as the employees are trying to put the pins in. That's just named some. And then I always try to look at the optimistic part of it. A tin building is a 20-year lifespan, and the city's gotten 40 years out of them. And that's a good thing. I mean, but it's time to replace them as well.
Okay, thank you. It just helps on the equipment too, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Kind of okay. Member Schilling, you had a comment?
Yes, sorry. My question was, Mr. Umjald, if we do, or actually not really a question, but more of a, I guess you would call it a suggestion. One of the things that we did in the city I currently work in, is we did the heated system in the floor, but what we did was we did geothermal heated floor system,
right.
Which tends to be far more efficient. And then I put solar panels on the entire building, which offsets the entire electrical cost of that. So, these are those little fine tuning things that I'd like to look at as we progress through things, because again, the cheaper, but the better, the more quality we can get for the less expensive would be great. So.
Yep.
Agreed.
That's good.
Okay, and what we're proposing right now, we don't have kind of that nitty gritty, but this is the overall, correct, Jean, as we're kind of, and also Jonathan, we don't have the nitty gritty in there, but to Member Schilling's point, there are things that we can do that is going to offset some of the cost or higher cost or whatever, energy wise and all that kind of stuff, correct?
Absolutely. This is just projected, costs at this point.
Okay, perfect. All right, I'm just gonna look around, shake your head if there's any other questions.
I do have one question.
Member Yeager?
Looking at the first page, I see to support all this, our levy will increase to 6.645 million, which is just a 49.28%. Is that correct? I did the math twice.
Are you looking at going from now until
when
all the bonds are issued? Is that what you're looking at?
No, it's under total taxes levied 6,645,049 over 4,451,308 minus 1, parentheses minus 1.
So comparing the property taxes in 2021 to property taxes in 2025.
Right, total
Um,
tax levy.
Right, there is, if you do a percentage, I'm sure that you are correct. And the one thing to remember in there is that we also have increased tax capacity, increased population. And so while you're looking at a large percentage there, if you look at the overall impact to the median valued home, because of the increased capacity, population, et cetera, the impact is not as great as what it would appear to be if you're just looking at 2021 compared to 2025 property tax levy itself.
Okay, because my concern is that people with such large increases, people might not be able to afford to live here. It might discourage businesses from coming in here without, or a business that doesn't ask for a tax abatement or a TIF or something. And I really wouldn't want that to happen.
Well, I think, Councilman Yeager, you've been on council a long time and through several different councils, and these buildings just keep getting more and more expensive. And so we've got to take action at some point in time. It may not be with our council, it may be with another council, but that council is going to blame us for not doing things. And it will be, I don't have the numbers in front of me. We had them somewhere on every year we don't do this, the increase that those materials become. So we haven't made any decisions yet. This is all talking and figuring it out and trying to decide. Bringing businesses into it, I guess I am going to say this. I travel Minnesota. I see many small, I'm sorry, Member Yeager, does that offend you?
No, I was just looking at my paper here and reading it.
Okay, so I'm going to say this, traveling into the little cities that have grown, St. Michael, Osceola, Otsego, you see that, and they put money into their city, into their facilities. And if you see how much they have grown because businesses and residents like to see that we're taking care of our facilities and the city looks nice, you'd be amazed. Take a drive, because it is outstanding what is happening. So, and Jean, let me ask this question, because Member Yeager does bring up a good point about businesses. So as we go along and we know that businesses are moving out to suburbs, this could change too in terms of if we have businesses actually and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Linwood, we've had many inquiries in the past, 4 months?
Yeah, we've seen an uptick in inquiries from potential developers and looking for property and trying to find fits with the property that we have to offer in the city. So we have seen an uptick in the last 4 months. So we're hopeful that we have a few things that might come to fruition here soon this year.
Yeah. So Jean, yeah, when we look at that, we're not including businesses in here except for the businesses we already have, right? So
that is correct. The projections currently include a number of residential housing units coming on board each year. Now, if you have, several commercial businesses come in, then, the impact, your tax capacity first at a much more substantial rate every have a new business come in. And so the offsetting impact is that the impact to the residents is going to be substantially less.
Right.
Businesses are taxed at a higher rate than what an individual homeowner is.
Perfect, thank you. Member Onstad, you had raised your hand. I'm sorry, and it's been a little while, so hopefully you didn't forget. Sorry.
No, I remember my question. A lot of this new development for buildings is driven by the ADA and ADA requirements. And I was wondering if there's any assessments on how not being an ADA compliance opens us up to lawsuits and how that could drive up our cost without getting anything in return. We wouldn't have a new building, but we could have potentially millions of dollars in lawsuits. Any comment on that?
Mr. Onstead, or Councilmember Onstead, I think you bring up a a good point. We're aware of the ADA, especially at City Hall. We have ADA accessibility issues, and that has been identified by the League of Minnesota Cities came out. And that, I think previous to you being on council, we did have a memo from the League of Minnesota Cities saying that these are some concerning things within your facility in regards to that accessibility, you know, in our front doors, our bathrooms. So it is a concern, you know, and you know, we're hopeful that it doesn't happen, but you know, like I said, the league has gave us notification that they would like to see something take care of it, or something happen, because they are insurance providers. So it's on our radar certainly, and on the league's radar. So there's motivation there to fix those too.
All right, I think we got everybody with that. So I appreciate the presentation. Jean, it's always good to see you. We appreciate that. So with that, Mr. Linwood, are we on to number 2?
I think maybe this last thing is maybe Mr. Luce, through the assessment, kind of the next steps, or where we want to, you know, what are the steps as far as the reviewing these, and where we want to, just so we kind of know where we're continuing to move on through this process and evaluation. Mr. Luce, would you be able to talk about that?
Yeah, sorry, Rob, just want to clarify, you're talking kind of what next steps would be for design, or just sort of schedule?
I think schedule, and if based on where the council decisions are, where would we, I guess, as far as the rule for schedule, or if there was a decision made for a design, how would that all come together, and how would that work?
Yeah, I mean, typically, if you're issuing those kind of bonds, you know, and you have to update your CIP, you know, you're looking at a 60-day period before you can really kind of start anything. But generally speaking, once you pass that point, you know, we would issue a proposal for what the design cost would be for this. And I would foresee it being, you know, if you just took all the buildings, there's probably some staggering of the effort, but it's probably a 12-month design period, and then followed by, you know, maybe 12 to 20 months of construction, depending on how you kind of phase in the buildings. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, and I think it may be too for the council, maybe just some, I guess, some direction on what we want to focus on, or do we want to continue to focus on those recommendations that were made for the 3 different facilities? Is that what we're looking at moving forward?
So
Yeah,
yeah, so with that, as soon as we're done, if that's what we're looking for, I will make sure that I call in each member to get their answer to that question.
yeah, I think, like you said, Rob, just kind of looking at those different recommendations right now. You know, we've studied it in detail, I think, with the core planning group, and there's no reason to believe that that wouldn't be the ultimate solution that the city would want to consider moving forward with. Certainly, the design process would include more input from the board or from the council as we move forward, and more input from staff and other department heads as we look at what the, you know, as I think it was said earlier, what the nitty gritty of it is. You know, we'll be looking into that. So I think having some assurance from the council that, you know, they feel like there's some ownership on the recommendation and they want to move forward with that, then I think we could work with Jean and kind of look at how we would phase in kind of our next stage of this.
Okay, so council you can shake your head with this. Council have a good idea if I do asking what everybody wants to do. So I'm going to start with, so the question is this. What we're asking is, does the council want to move forward to get more into the nitty gritty of design? All right, so I'm going to start with member Yeager.
I would like to see, I'm very concerned about the amount of the taxes that will go up to finance this. I would like to see a scaled back design to make it more affordable for everybody.
Okay, so that wasn't what was asked. So you're saying yes to going ahead to seeing more of seeing a design, correct?
I would like to see the design scaled back. If you choose to go ahead with the full design, You know,
We don't have a design to
Elizabeth,
scale back yet. So we're asking if we need to go ahead and have them start looking at that. We don't have a design yet, so we can't scale anything back. Member Onstead.
I am definitely for moving forward.
Thank you. Member Schilling.
Absolutely in favor of moving forward. We got a long ways to go,
Member
and we
Luker.
got to keep moving. So
Perfect. Thank you. Member Luger.
Completely in favor of moving forward.
Okay, and I am as well. And as we look at the next design, if it needs to be scaled back or added to, then that's where we're going to go. But we have to start with the design. So, Mr. Luce, does that give you an answer to your question? Same with Jean, with Ms. McCann. Are we good?
Yeah, I think we can definitely work closely with Rob to kind of come back to the council with what our, you know, real solid next steps are on this, and maybe a little bit more detail about how these projects might phase in, and get some further feedback on that, so we can show you what our kind of design effort would look like, and then have that as you know, maybe some potential formal next steps, including how the financing piece would work. And I think that's probably even earlier than what I'm talking about, and Jean can probably speak to that better than I can.
Absolutely. You know, we'll all work closely together and come up with a good game plan to bring forward back to the council for additional discussion.
Okay, and I have all the faith in the world that you know, our vendors or the people that we rely on for their opinion know that we are a conservative city, and but we also want to make sure that we give attention to what is needed as well. But we are conservative, and I think our vendors know that. So I'm looking forward to see what that design is going to be, and where we go from there. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Member Shelley, did you have something to add to that? You look like you were.
no, I changed my mind. Sorry.
Okay, sounds good. All right. All right. Are we on to number 2, Mr. Linwood?
Yes, Mayor, I think we're ready.
All right. So number 2 on our agenda, American Rescue Plan Act discussion, although I don't think this is going to be very long.
No, unfortunately, it's not. We staff in reviewing this and watching, you know, what we thought was a lot of the information that was going to be further coming out on this, unfortunately has not come out yet. We've had a couple different entities through ICMA and National League of Cities that have had some things come out for this, but just to give the council, I guess, the latest update of what we have, the American Rescue Plan was a very large stimulus package of 1.9 trillion economic stimulus approved by the government. It was split between all sorts of different entities, municipalities, counties, tribes, territories. What we know so far is the funds will be released on this in 2 payments to local governments. So that half following an enactment, and then half paid 12 months following receipt of that first payment. There's not population thresholds. The funds can be used this time to replace lost revenue, where last time, if you remember, for the CARES Act, that was not an option. And then the funds can be transferred between jurisdictions or nonprofit partners. And there is an expenditure deadline of December 31st, 2024. We're still waiting for guidance from the Treasury. I know the League of Minnesota Cities has a webinar coming up on May 5th that we'll be watching for hopefully some anticipated more guidance. I'm not aware of anything else that came out today. Maybe Ms. McCann, I don't know if you heard anything the last day or two, maybe that I missed, but I have not seen anything.
I have been checking on a daily basis, and there has not been any additional information issued at this point.
And then lastly, just the early estimate that we have received was that Wyoming was to receive approximately $918,000 in funds. That's preliminary, and the Treasury has really cautioned that that's initial numbers and subject to change. But the latest that we have heard at this point that we may have our first payment as early as June 9th, but we'll continue to watch this and hopefully have this at an upcoming work session to really talk about in greater detail with the council and what we can do with these funds and what priorities the council sees with these funds. So unfortunately, we just don't have that guidance yet. And this topic just doesn't have a lot of chance to go into discussion tonight. So, but I just wanted to give it to council the update, what we have. You've probably heard about it, and we thought it was good to just at least get a little bit of information out there of what we knew.
And hopefully we'll have it during budget planning time because that's coming up. So that would be nice to have it by June, right? So,
Right.
all right. Thank you, Mr. Linwood. I'm just going to look really quick. Shake your head if you have any questions on this. No. Okay, good. All right. Thank you. All right. So we will go into number 3 then. And that is to consider the diversity, equity, and inclusion training program. I'm not sure who is taking this one. So
That will be me, Mayor.
all right, Ms. Dumas will be taking this.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the City Council. In 2020, the City Council directed staff to explore different racial diversity, equity, and inclusion programs with a specific interest in the Government Alliance for Racial Equity program. In looking at the options available through that program, the GEAR program was going through a significant restructuring of their program at that time. And they have since become more of a networking program rather than a training program, which didn't necessarily align with the initial goals of the City Council. So staff has been in the process of reaching out to and exploring some alternative training programs as suggested by the League of Minnesota Cities. And so several options are included in your packet. In the time that has passed since the initial request, the City Council has continued to implement equity and inclusion programs throughout the city, including, making sure that we have ADA design in our park master plans, the digital access to council materials on our website. All these kind of fit within the framework of what this type of training would provide. And this initiative is really building on that practice and that commitment for the City Council. In looking at some different options, there were a couple features that staff wanted to identify within the different training programs that were offered to make sure it was a good fit for the Wyoming community. The first is making sure that there's a variety of diversity topics that were included in the conversation. The second was making sure that there was an ability to identify the breadth of topics that fit under this so that it wasn't just focused on a specific or a small minute slice of this very broad conversation of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And finally, we wanted to make sure that there was time and space for this programming to really there to be discussions of how this training applied to Wyoming specifically and how we could integrate this into what we do and how we make decisions as a city. So the program that staff thinks most closely fits this is offered by Esperanza Consulting. Their proposed program, which is flexible and we can adapt it as the council sees fit, but the initial proposal is a 4-part training series that covers some introduction to the topic, expanding on that, and then ultimately ending in an opportunity for discussion about how this applies to our specific community. So that framework is outlined in your packet. There are other options that were also included that were shared with staff. One option that was not in the proposed offering, but that might be of interest to council was a facilitated book club. So what we're really trying to get from this conversation is what are the components that the council wants to see in this program, and if the council wants to continue moving forward with either the proposed consultant or an alternative. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thanks, Ms. Dumas. I do have one question and I'm not getting my eyes on it. Is there, and I think I remember seeing it, is there a smaller version of this that it's not so many sessions, but it's kind of an overview kind of thing? And if so, if we decide to go further with it, do we have to take everything in 1 year? Or can it be broke out? And I only get concerned because we have a lot of work sessions right now, especially with what's going on with facilities. I feel this is extremely important, but then it's also trying to fit in all those sessions. So I thought I saw that in there. I could be wrong.
Absolutely. The structure of the program is very flexible and can absolutely fit the council's interest. If you're wanting to cover kind of the full range of topics that were identified and just spread it out, that's an option. If the council wanted to reduce the content into fewer sessions, that's also something some feedback we can bring back to the consultant. That might result in some logistical changes and perhaps some price changes. So that might adjust some of those pieces, but staff can absolutely return back with any feedback or changes that the council is interested in.
Okay, and then it's $700 a session, correct?
It's $700 a session for the, I believe it's a 2-hour session. So for example, if the council wanted to do like 1 4-hour session, that might be a bit different. I'm not exactly sure what the cost would be. We would have to discuss that with the consultant.
Okay, and does it matter? Is this only just going to be for council members, or are we spreading this out to commissioners and, you know, all employees and commissions within the city? And does it change the price at all?
That would be for the city council to identify how you want to, where you want to have this conversation. Many communities that are engaging in these topics do expand the conversation to other parts of the city operations. Some things to consider, there's a lot of legislation happening right now guiding different training programs for staff on this topic. And one thing that we might want to consider is making sure that any staff training did align with that guidance so that we weren't doing duplicate training programs to meet those requirements. But if the council is interested in expanding who has access to this program, we absolutely can discuss that. And again, bring that to the consultant to confirm logistics details.
All right, and I did have one other question with that, and it just kind of flew out my brain. So as I'm asking other members, I bet you I'm going to remember and I'll write it down. So, I know what it was. Where in our budget do we have this? We have a training budget, right, Mr. Linwood?
You do have a training budget that right would be able to would handle this based on the 4 sessions, or if the council is looking to do some sort of hybrid, whatever the decision may be, if it's a hybrid, if it's all 4, if it's something that is in the middle. We have enough budget for council for training. Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I'll go around the room. So Member Onstad.
I'd like to make a comment. I've been to training like this before as a correctional officer, and it is always wonderful, and it gets everybody on the team on the same page. So I'm all for it.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Member Schilling. Oh, all right, I'll go.
Sorry, no, my dogs were barking and I didn't want to
Okay.
unmute.
Okay.
So thank you, Mayor. You actually hit both of my questions. One was, can we try to do it in a condensed version in a 1 day? And I'll actually add on to that. If it's something that we think we could go forward with, or an additional portion of that, I have no objection to that. My concern is when I saw the 4 training sessions, we're already so, built up throughout the month, each month that goes by, and then, budget starts pretty soon. And again, that was my concern. And then the other question I had that you asked was, would it be for all commissioners? And I think in most cases, those elected or appointed positions are usually first to start out with this, and the cities that I've seen it happen in, and then they kind of progress it up, into a staff end. It hasn't happened yet anywhere that I've seen. Mr. Onstad, obviously with the job that you do, that's a different situation, but that was kind of my only 2 questions. Cost was answered. Everything was actually asked, so I had to cross them off. That's kind of why I was laughing as we went. So.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
All right. Member Luger.
I'm in favor of moving forward with this. I guess I am more in favor of maybe if we need to spreading them out. I am less of a fan of condensing it. I think each of these sessions have significant value. And I think that part of this process is kind of the reflection and the processing that goes into each session and between each session. And so I think even like if we could spread them out, that might be even more effective. But I think we should do the sessions, but I mean, if we can spread them out, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Member Yeager.
Will these be public and publicly recorded and broadcast sessions?
It depends how the council would like to move forward with them. If all council members are present in a meeting, it does have to be publicly posted and open to the public. However, if the council was interested in, perhaps expanding it to include, like you mentioned, board members or staff, then and having multiple sessions that were not all together, thus the council was not all in one room at the same time, that would not constitute a public meeting. So it does depend how the council wants to move forward with the structure.
Well, I think we should have everybody take it if you're going to have it take it. My personal concerns stem from a training session we had 2 years ago where the trainer and 2 members of council bought into stereotypes from people from the East Coast, especially New York and New Jersey is how it was phrased. And there were denigrating comments made it. There were stereotypical comments made at it. And as a result, I was extremely uncomfortable and am reluctant to share certain opinions with the group.
So are you
Yeah.
in favor of it, not Council Member Yeager? I'm trying to understand what you're getting at.
I'm trying to tell you that I have concerns based on a previous training where it was not very inclusive. It was, there was negative stereotypes brought up to prove a point, to make a point. And so I'm reluctant to engage for that reason. So you either, allay my concerns or accept that I'm reluctant to engage because I'm getting burnt on a previous training.
Okay, I gotta say I was there. I don't remember it. So I apologize for that. I don't. If that's how you feel, that's, I get that part of it. So I don't know, Ms. Dumas, how do we, how do you go to a trainer and say we have somebody from this demographics? And because if it's inclusion, equity inclusion, I'm gonna guess that there's probably not gonna be verbiage that would be making others feel bad.
Correct. So that absolutely is the goal. And a part of this training is looking at the wide variety of aspects of identity and discussing inclusivity on different levels. And so a part of this is a learning experience, and it is a growing experience, hopefully for all people involved, getting value out of that process. We absolutely want to make sure that everybody feels safe to share opinions and engage with the material.
Okay. So I'm going to try to summarize everything if I can. So it seems like all the council members are in favor of some type of training, equity, inclusion, right? That's what I'm gathering. If I'm wrong, somebody please unmute and tell me I'm wrong. The question or the part that becomes a little more difficult is how we are able to, it is a very important matter. So how we fit it in, do we have to go all in 1 year because we're already in May? So is it something that they allow us to spread over within the next 12 months to do? Or, and to Councilmember Lugar's point, they all kind of add on to each other, right? So how do we fit that all in? I don't know the answer to that. I'm just trying to wrap it all up. So Mr. Linwood, if you have a suggestion on that, I would appreciate it.
I think perhaps, Ms. Dumas, we can go back to the trainer and really talk about, some of the feedback that we got from the council in regards to, spreading those trainings out or talking about that. And if we did want to look at potentially the addition, if there'd be a significant change in the cost. So I think we can maybe get some of those questions answered and then bring that back to the council. It sounds like you're looking all upon it favorably with some potential conditions, but I think we have enough to at least move forward and then finalize and get some of the final details together before we proceed.
Does that sound right? Are we kind of just a shake of the head? Would be great. All right, great. All right. I will miss Zoom because when we're sitting at the Diaz, I can't see everybody's faces. Yeah, see, so I wouldn't be able to see Member Schilling, right? His face. So it'll be different going back, that's for sure. So facial expressions are very important. All right, so with that, I don't know what I did with my agenda. There it is. I believe that is all that's officially on the agenda. Although I do believe that Mr. Linwood has something to share with the whole council, and I'm looking forward to what he has to say.
Sure. Certainly, Mayor. Thank you. Councilmember Schilling, I saw you with your hand up. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, I'm going to just take this brief moment because there's only one thing to add to what you said, Mayor. I really hate Zoom. I want to get back in person. I can't stand this. This has been the hardest year ever of being on this thing, and I do it all day long, and I think that's why I don't like it. So
yeah,
that's it. I'll leave it at that. Can we get back in person?
I agree. I'm looking forward to being with everybody as a group. I think that really works together, and teamwork, right? Being in the same room, I think that really helps. So,
yep.
All right.
I like that for these meetings, especially, is everybody in the same room around a table, so we're all facing one another. So
I agree. I think that's super important. So I know Mr. Onstead, Councilmember Onstead, has not had the pleasure of being at the Diaz, right? So
I don't even know where I'll be sitting.
all right, we'll find a good place for you, Brett. Okay, Mr. Linwood, it is now all about you.
Well, I think it'll be about the city of Wyoming. We have some exciting news, and we wanted to give the council an update tonight. That lastly tonight, it's not really on our agenda, but we have an update in regards to Railroad Park and the new design features that's been going there. We started having conversations with the First State Bank of Wyoming at the end of last year in regards to them wanting to be a part of the project, and then through that, Ms. Dumas and I have been visiting some of our larger businesses in town and starting to work through some of the donations with that. And then through some of those successful donations that we received, Ms. Dumas has been working with the consultant that we use, the vendor that we use for videos, and we have gotten a video for it. But I want to, Ms. Dumas has that video, I think, queued up, and we can share that with the council and then ask any questions after that's done.
I'll try to stop smiling, sorry.
I take it you all know about this?
No, I know,
You're
obviously.
smiling because you're making the comment. Got it.
I'm making a comment. I know about it, and you'll see why. So go ahead, Ms. Dumas.
Okay, can everyone see my screen? There's a black square in it right now?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet? Okay, hold on.
There we go.
Okay.
You gotta turn it up.
Corner of downtown Wyoming. The City Council has sought
Louder.
feedback from the community for several years about what Wyoming residents would like to create at the park. Through open houses and discussions with the Park Advisory Commission, community feedback from the city website, and community surveys, a vision began to form.
I'm Lisa Iverson, Mayor of the City of Wyoming. I see this park as being a central location. It's going to be a welcoming into our city that we haven't had before. It's going to be where we can now on Memorial Day and Veterans Day come together and truly honor our veterans of the City of Wyoming.
My name is Austin Hallberg, and I'm the president and general manager of Hallberg Marine, and I help manage the Hallberg Family Foundation.
My name is Dawn LaFonte, and I am a veteran. I was in the Navy for 8 years.
Hi, I'm Marge Strand from Forest Lake Sanitation, Town and Country Disposal, and our parent company is SRC.
Mark Zaruba, CEO of First State Bank of Wyoming.
In late 2020, the City Council approved a final master plan for Railroad Park. The plan has 3 main components. First, a trailhead along the regional Sunrise Prairie Trail. Second, a history walk celebrating the story of the community. And third, a Veterans Memorial to honor those who serve in the armed forces.
I hope that when this park is completed and put together, that residents and visitors will be able to come here and meet on a firsthand basis the people who have lived and worked here to make this community what it is today.
The impact that the park should have is just a great connection hub, a point where maybe we can all gather and share memories and reflections, and also enjoy the exercise that the trailhead offers.
I'm most excited about the trailhead because with COVID going on and everybody trying to get out and be more active, it's nice to have a trailhead where we can actually have people who travel down Highway 61 on the bike path have a spot for them to stop.
Although we were really excited about the Veterans Memorial Park, being that the bank's been involved in the city here for 107 years, we thought the history walk might be a much better area to get involved with.
What I think it's going to mean to our residents of the city of Wyoming is they're going to be proud when their family and friends come into the city of Wyoming and they see this beautiful park. It means that when we have the MS-150 come through, it's just going to showcase what all we have to offer and how proud we are of the history of the city of Wyoming.
Residents and businesses alike have stepped up and donated to the project, which so far has raised over $200,000. While there are still funds that need to be raised to fully fund the project, these contributions have transformed this project from an idea into a reality.
Community's been very good to First State Bank of Wyoming over the last 100+ years. And when we heard about the project, we thought that it might be a great way to get behind it and get it jump started. So hopefully it can come to fruition here in the near future.
The City of Wyoming would like to extend thanks to all of the donors who have helped contribute to the Railroad Park project. If you are also interested in making either a financial contribution or participating in future engagement efforts regarding the park's construction, please visit wyomingmn.org or call 651-462-0575.
Woohoo! Super excited about this. It is something that I know I've been working towards and the Park Advisory Commission has been working towards. And I can't thank enough our donors that have come forward to start really making this a reality, and being able to thank our veterans, being able to show our history. And when you can tell I'm super excited. And then as you come into our city and you're seeing this beautiful park that's dedicated not only to our residents, but to our veterans. So if Hallbergs are listening and First State Bank is listening and Rosenbauer and SRC, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know that our residents are going to be super excited. Brett, I know that you're probably super excited because we've talked about this for years. So, and Member Schilling being a veteran as well. So if anybody wants to make a comment on this, feel free, but you can tell it's hard to contain my excitement. So Member Schilling, do you have anything you want to say?
I just want to, I think it's incredible. I think it's amazing the money that's already been raised for this. It was very exciting to see that. I pretty much smiled the whole time because I'm really looking forward to this park. And again, thank you to all the donors. And, you know, I think this is an amazing community engagement. I think we can pull this off. So, and do it without a cost to the taxpayers, as we say. So,
yeah, that's
it's very exciting. It's awesome. I'm very happy.
Yeah, very excited. Member Onstad.
Yes, I am just excited about this. The history walk, you know, I worked on that from its inception, I believe, or had at least a part in it, and even, you know, throwing out some design elements, and to see that bike stand right there. And, you know, I just wish the video had some of the 150 going through with the cowbell going, you know, to show that part of it. I'm so excited about this project. I don't know where to start.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Member Yeager, I don't see in the screen. Do you have any comments or anything regarding the
Yes,
development?
I would like to thank Holberg Family Foundation, the First State Bank of Wyoming, Rosenbauer, and SRC for their generous donations. And, you know, grateful from the bottom of our hearts.
All right, thank you. Member Luker, anything?
Not really anything different. This is great. This is so great. I am so grateful to those donors. That's wow. Thank you. This is gonna the amenity to for our community and our residents is just. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank the Park Advisory Commission as well. I think they've played a great part in helping, and really I have to say city staff, because you've done a great job in putting out what we want the park to look like, and then putting it on social media. And that's where all of this really came from. And I think most of us know we have a rich history here in Wyoming. So I have been trying to keep this secret for a really long time, and it's been hard as possible. I know, you guys, it's right hard for me to, it's just amazing. So it does have better quality. I will promise everybody that there is better quality to it.
The streaming video was a little to be desired, but
yeah, so it moves along much faster. I do want to say this: when you start watching it as it's intended, there are some actually beautiful shots of Wyoming in that video, and especially towards the end. But really pay attention to that as well, because we really have a great looking city. And so you guys all know how I feel. Anyways, all right. So with that, if there are no more questions or comments, and I'll try to contain myself a little bit more from here. So is there anything else? Shake your head yes or no. No? All right. All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and call for the adjournment of this work session at 7:28 p.m. All right, everybody. I hope you have a great week, and pass along this video once we get it posted. Take care.
thank you.